In the tense waters of the East China Sea, a subtle but significant change is unfolding as Japanese officials quietly urge their fishermen to steer clear of the disputed Senkaku Islands, known as Diaoyu in China, fearing that even minor incidents could ignite a larger conflict with Beijing. This marks a departure from Tokyo's long-standing approach, where such fishing trips were tacitly tolerated or even indirectly supported as a means to assert control over the uninhabited islets. Fishermen like Hitoshi Nakama, a 76-year-old from Ishigaki, who sees himself as a defender of Japan's sovereignty, have been directly approached by Coast Guard officials to cancel voyages since late November 2025. Nakama, backed by nationalist groups, regularly navigates these rich fishing grounds teeming with red snapper, evading Chinese vessels to harvest catches that bolster both income and national claims. Yet, in a meeting on December 19, 2025, with Finance Minister Satsuki Katayama, he interpreted her warning that small incidents can grow bigger and lead to war as pressure to stay away. Similarly, fisherman Kazushi Kinjo received multiple calls from officials urging him to avoid the area during his November 26 voyage, a first in his experience. Hiroaki Hayashi, from a group funding these trips, was also asked to halt plans. Japan's foreign ministry maintains the islands are inherent territory and protests Chinese incursions, but declines specifics on these requests. China's foreign ministry accuses right-wing Japanese of provoking trouble under the guise of fishing and calls for dialogue. This shift comes amid record Chinese Coast Guard activity, with vessels near the islands on 357 days in 2025. The islands, over 300 kilometers from China and 150 from Japan's nearest land, hold strategic value with potential resources and shipping lanes. Tension spiked after Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's November 2025 comments on a potential Taiwan conflict, prompting Beijing's retaliatory measures like suspending Japanese films. Experts note this creates a dilemma for Tokyo. Fishing asserts control but risks escalation, while restraint might embolden China. Ishigaki Mayor Yoshitaka Nakayama highlights fears that a detention could balloon into an international crisis. As winter seas deter trips, nationalists aim to reverse the decline from 18 trips in 2024 to 8 in 2025. The U.S., bound by treaty to defend the islands, opposes unilateral changes, adding global stakes. This cautious policy reflects Tokyo's effort to manage a phenomenally tense situation without conceding ground. The Senkaku Islands dispute traces back to the late 19th century when Japan incorporated the uninhabited chain into Okinawa Prefecture in January 1895, claiming them as terra nullius after surveys showed no prior control by the Qing dynasty. This occurred amid the First Sino-Japanese War, ending with the Treaty of Shimonoseki in April 1895, where China ceded Taiwan, but not explicitly the Senkakus, which Japan argues were already its territory. China and Taiwan contend the islands were part of ceded lands, citing historical maps from as early as 1403 and Qing administration. By the early 20th century, a skipjack tuna plant operated on Utsuri Island until the 1930s, and Japanese fishermen frequented the area, with 164 trips recorded in 1977. Post-World War II, the U.S. administered the Ryukyus, including the Senkakus, under the 1951 San Francisco Treaty, where Japan renounced claims to Taiwan but retained residual sovereignty over the islands. The 1960 U.S.-Japan Security Treaty extended protection to these territories. Claims intensified in the 1970s after a 1968 UN report revealed potential oil reserves, prompting China and Taiwan to assert sovereignty in 1971, referencing ancient texts in proximity to Taiwan. The 1972 Okinawa reversion returned administration to Japan, validating its control in Tokyo's view, though the U.S. remained neutral on sovereignty. In 1978, over 80 Chinese boats lingered near the islands before the Japan-China Peace Treaty. The 1990s saw disputes over Japanese lighthouse plans and Yasukuni visits, leading to shelving agreements. In 2002 to 2004, Japan leased islands to block landings. Chinese activists were arrested, sparking protests. Taiwan proposed resource sharing in 2012. China's 2021 Coast Guard law allows lethal force in disputed waters. Japan bases its claim on effective control since 1895 in U.S. affirmations. China on historical sovereignty, Taiwan on similar ties. The island's strategic location near shipping lanes and fisheries has sustained a feud, with economic booms de-escalating tensions post-1972 normalization. U.S. commitments, reaffirmed by Presidents Obama and Biden, underscore international dimensions. This history frames today's caution, as past incidents show how quickly maritime disputes can flare. Key clashes have punctuated the Senkaku dispute, starting with the 2010 collision where a Chinese fishing boat rammed Japanese Coast Guard vessels, leading to the captain's arrest and sparking widespread protests in China and Taiwan. Beijing imposed a rare earth embargo and detained Japanese businessmen, resolving only after mutual releases. In 2012, Japan's nationalization of 3 islands from private owners triggered massive anti-Japanese riots in 85 Chinese cities, with activists landing and coast guards clashing using water cannons. China declared baselines around the islands, empowering its agencies to patrol more aggressively. That year saw 47 Chinese encroachments and 160 Japanese fighter scrambles. In 2013, a Chinese warship allegedly locked radar on Japanese assets, denied by Beijing, amid protests over airspace incursions. China's East China Sea Air Defense Identification Zone, encompassing the islands, drew U.S. defiance with B-52 flights. In 2014, Japan opened a radar station on Yonaguni, irking China, but agreed fishing rules with Taiwan. A 2016 collision sank a Chinese boat, rescued by Japan, with thanks from Beijing. In 2018, a hotline was established to prevent accidents, alongside defense meetings. 2022 sightings of Chinese and Russian warships heightened alerts. In 2023, Chinese ships lingered over 80 hours in Japanese waters. 2024 saw China install, then remove a buoy in Japan's EEZ. In November 2025, a Chinese Coast Guard formation patrolled the waters on a rights enforcement mission, amid backlash over Takaichi's Taiwan remarks. December 2025 brought another face-off. China claimed a Japanese vessel illegally entered Diaoyu waters and was expelled. Japan said it repelled 2 Chinese ships approaching its boat. These events reflect China's growing assertiveness, with record vessel presences testing Japan's defenses. U.S. condemnations and Senate resolutions in 2012 to 2013 backed Japan against force. Such incidents underscore the risk of miscalculation in this low-intensity conflict. Ties between Tokyo and Beijing have plummeted since November 2025, when Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested Japan might respond militarily to a Chinese attack on Taiwan, breaking from prior strategic ambiguity. China reacted furiously, summoning Japan's ambassador, issuing threats like cutting off the dirty head that sticks out and warning of failure in any intervention. Beijing suspended Japanese film releases, curbed exports, canceled flights, and advised citizens against travel to Japan, prompting refunds from airlines. Takaichi clarified on January 26, 2026, that her words did not mean proactive military action, but that ignoring a U.S.-involved Taiwan crisis would crumble the alliance. She emphasized responding within legal limits for evacuations, rejecting retraction demands as mischaracterizations. Japan's pacifist constitution allows collective defense only if survival is threatened. This rhetoric ties into Senkaku tensions, as Taiwan lies 170 kilometers away, and China views the islands as part of its Taiwan claims. Concurrently, Taiwan reported 30 Chinese aircraft and 7 ships and patrols, monitored by its forces. The U.S., urging restraint in a November call with Takaichi, opposes status quo changes. China's Coast Guard incursions hit records, with patrols like November 16's rights enforcement amid the spat. December's clash saw mutual accusations of illegal entry, with China urging cessation of provocations. Broader diplomacy includes a 2014 four-point agreement for crisis management and 2008 resource exploitation talks, stalled by disputes. China's 2013 air zone and water cannon use against Philippines highlight assertive maritime policy. Japan protests intrusions diplomatically, while Beijing accuses right-wing fishing as troublemaking. These links amplify fears that Senkaku incidents could draw in Taiwan and U.S. forces. Experts describe the Senkaku area as phenomenally tense, a touch paper for deterioration where fishing asserts sovereignty but invites dangerous escalation. Robert Ward of the ISS notes Japan must show a pulse to deter China from overwhelming the waters. Paul Midford from Meiji Gakuin University sees merit in demonstrating control, but warns of provocation risks. Tokyo faces a catch, 22. Pulling back might encourage Beijing's claims, while persistence could spark war from small clashes. The U.S. treaty obligation risks broader involvement, as affirmed in Senate resolutions condemning force. Declining Japanese trips reflect heightened dangers, with nationalists like Nakama vowing to continue despite requests. China's law allowing Coast Guard firepower adds volatility. Implications extend to regional stability, with shipping lanes and resources at stake. Taiwan's claims complicate matters, proposing joint development. Diplomatic tools like hotlines and meetings aim to manage crises, but recent spats over Taiwan erode trust. Beijing's patrols test defenses, while Tokyo repositions forces southward. Future outlook hinges on de-escalation. Past normalizations post-1972 show economic ties can cool tensions, but nationalist rhetoric sustains friction. China's air zone and buoy placements signal intent to normalize presence. Japan awards patrol contracts to counter incursions. Amid U.S. backing, avoiding miscalculation is key, as incidents like radar locks or collisions could spiral. This factual standoff demands careful navigation to prevent a clash.